it doesn't go well. How do you tell me, say God can do everything? If God can do everything, why didn't he forgive us without killing his son? Now, we are even talking about hellfire. Now, let me ask a question. Do you believe God is a forgiveness God? Can God forgive sins?
Oh, yeah, I believe so. He does that every day.
If God is a God of forgiveness, why hellfire? Why can't he forgive us and let us all go to heaven if there is heaven? If God is...
We are going to dive into this controversy, this thought-provoking topic. Can God really do everything? And if so, why would he choose to sacrifice his son instead of simply eradicating sin? Remember, we have this idea of God as an omnipotent God, one who can do absolutely everything and anything. It is the cornerstone of most religious beliefs. If you go to every single church, we have been taught, we have been preached that this God is omnipotent. This God has the ability to do everything. But if we try to logically unpack the omnipotency of this God, they would also have to ask the question, why would somebody or this deity, this great being who has the ability to do everything and anything, resort to extreme measures of sacrificing his own son in order to deal with a creation? Because sin is what he created. So why would he have to resort to this extreme measure of sacrificing his own son instead of just dealing with sin the way he created every other thing that exists? So this would now beg the question, wouldn't an omnipotent being have countless ways of solving or addressing this problem? Because sin is a problem. So when we now look at the omnipotency of God, we should now come from the knowledge or from the point of this God should have different ways of addressing this particular problem instead of using a violent alternative to tackle it. Now, let's look at the Christian theology of God, which is that God includes justice, God includes love, God includes holiness, God includes mercy. Now, we are told that sin is a violation of divine law. And because sin is a violation of divine law, it must be punished to satisfy God's justice. But here is the question. If God can do everything, why does justice needs to involve so much suffering? The concept of hellfire, the concept of him sacrificing his only begotten son. Why would his love always come with a condition? And it is always violent at that. Now, wouldn't we say that God can simply forgive sins outrightly without the need for a brutal sacrifice? He's omnipotent. He created this system. He created heaven. He created hell. He created every single thing. So it could, the forgiveness of sin could be so automated. It could be so automatic that it does not have to require a brutal sacrifice or the concept of hell for sin to be forgiven. Now, this now brings us to the concept of divine love and divine mercy. The narrative that claims that Jesus' sacrifice was the ultimate act of love. But it is a contradiction, because the omnipotent God should be able to demonstrate love, mercy, and without resorting to violence. Like I said earlier, this God can demonstrate that he is omnipotent without resorting to brutal sacrifice, which is very, very violent. So why wouldn't God in his infinite power create a system where forgiveness and justice coexist without bloodshed? Now, this topic has fueled many people that believes that this God is unjust, because there are so many alternatives. And when we now say that he did it out of love, you cannot do it out of love. It cannot be out of love, because you have the power to use numerous alternatives. You could simply forgive. You could simply eradicate sin. But because you didn't do that, you sacrificed your only son. And we should now conceive it as love, mercy, and a sacrifice that was done for our own sake. So you see why people are asking these questions. They do not make sense. Now, another thing here, when we consider many that argue that this sacrifice was necessary in order to fulfill the prophecy or divine justice, these are just constructs within the religious narrative itself, because religion has created ways of justifying the death of Christ. And for it to be a sustainable system, it has to create something that we should want to. We need to look at this God as merciful, as loving, as kind, and want to subscribe to their system, because we have been told that this God did this thing for us. So it creates a sense of gratitude, it creates a sense of appreciation. And when that appreciation or it's not giving back to that God, a Christian would be like, why won't you serve God? He sacrificed his son for you. Because him or her, within themselves, within Christians, they are feeling this sense of gratitude that an atheist or someone that does not believe in this Christian religious doctrine, person is not having or feeling that sense of gratitude. So it's easier for that person to say, oh, I don't really believe in this, and no, it does not make sense. Because everything that we have been told, it is quite contradictory to the facts. The second question that was posed was, does God truly forgive? And if so, what is the essence of hell? Now, many religious doctrines, they teach that God is infinitely merciful and it's everly willing to forgive those who repent. But is this seen through? Because it raises a significant question. Why does hell exist if God is all-knowing? What purpose does eternal damnation serve? Now, let's start at the concept of divine forgiveness. Because according to many religious folks and preachers, God's forgiveness is available. It is readily available to all those who sincerely seek it. Therefore, this idea is comforting. This idea that this God is readily available to forgive, it is comforting to those who believe in it. Now, it suggests a loving and a compassionate deity. But here is the contradiction: the existence of hellfire, a place of eternal punishment for those who sin. Now, if forgiveness is genuinely infinite, then what is the need for extreme retribution? If forgiveness is genuinely infinite, what is the essence of retribution? Now, some religious folk will say because God has given us the free will to do what you want to do, live the life you want to live. He has given the free will to choose him, and when you don't choose him, he punishes you. But if that is the case, that's a contradiction, because free will cannot coexist with consequences. Free will means that you are free to choose, and even if you don't choose me, there is no problem with it, because I have given you the choice, the freedom to do as you will. So the question of free will and the question of forgiveness or hellfire coexisting in the same sentence, it's logically incorrect, and it begs the question why many people are confused on this God that is being defined as ultimately and infinitely forgiving also created a system of punishment that is very extreme. Now, the question here is that when we now look at hellfire and what it is, now we have to ask, is hell truly about justice, or is it about control? Now, the fear of hellfire has been a powerful tool in maintaining religious adherence. But does this fear really align with the idea of God? Does it idea with the idea of a loving and a forgiving God? Or does it simply serve an entire purpose, a different purpose? Because if you tell somebody that, oh, there is this God that loves you, but if you don't love this God back, he's going to punish you, So you listen to the contradictions within these religious doctrines, and you would now see that these things are just human beings just trying to justify a lot of things, because they have created this idea of hellfire as a way to control people's actions. When the leaders are bad, pray, don't revolt, don't protest, don't come out and say this person is doing this thing, because there is a God that is watching. And it is God that anointed those leaders. And the God has said, pray for your leaders. So if you protest, you're going to go to hellfire. So what you're going to do is to pray for those leaders. So this is the contradiction of religion. This is the contradiction of religion. Now, if we now bring this conversation, this idea of forgiveness, this idea of can a deity do everything and anything? Now, it is logically incorrect, because within the Igbo cosmological system, we have different kinds of deities. They exist for different functions, and even this creator factor or creator concept that we have, do we also ascribe this creator concept as a being that can do everything? No, we don't even have that much interaction. In fact, we do believe that even if it exists, we don't have any relationship, any interaction with it. So within our Igbo or African cosmological system, we don't have the existence of this God factor that can do everything and anything, that can punish people that offend you. Now, when it comes to the question of forgiveness within the Igbo structure, Igbo cosmological structure, it entails being accountable, being held accountable. Which means that when you offend somebody, you do not go to a deity to go and seek for forgiveness. You go over to the person that you offended and you ask that person to forgive you. And by asking that person to forgive you, it frees your consciousness, it frees your aka. And once you've concluded your life's mission, you can be able to move on. Your energy, your essence can be able to move on. So it could be terraformed into something different. But when you have that karma attached to your existence, to your consciousness, it requires that you have a repetition, a do-over. This is where reincarnation comes in. It requires that you have a do-over that would require you to ask that forgiveness, to be held accountable by that person that you offended. If you offended the spirit, it would require you to come back and go to that spirit and ask for its forgiveness. Because we believe in one mother, maybe one mother, one way, maybe one more, one way, maybe one mother, one mother, maybe one more. It goes both ways. So within our system, if you do something, when you're the kind of person that got yourself involved in human sacrifice, got yourself in selling your brother, kidnapping people and selling them to the white man into slavery and all those things, it requires that you retribute. And it is not something you do shallowly. It is something you do when you approach the person that you offended. But there is nothing like eternal condemnation. There is nothing like eternal condemnation that we see it, or it is being presented within Christianity or Christendom. It is a simple of finding out the person you offended and going to go and restitute and apologize for what you did. It is as simple as why reincarnation exists. And even before that happened, even if you reincarnate, you would be in a situation where your life would not progress. It would not be beautiful, because when your life is beautiful, when you have everything that you want, you might not know that there is a problem. So nature would put you in a system or in a condition that would make you to listen and to look for what is wrong with your life. This is where you will now go through the divisional process, and the diviner would say, in your previous life you did this, you did. For instance, the story I heard of a man who was the catalyst that killed the wife. I think either he hit her or he did something, and the wife was pregnant. So what happened to this man is that he was not able to impregnate any woman. When the wife gets pregnant, she will just have a miscarriage. He somehow thought she was responsible, sent her back home, got another wife. The same cycle was being repeated. Now what did he do? He went to a diviner. The diviner told him that in your previous life you did this thing to a woman, and because of what you did to a woman, she caused you that you are not going to be able to carry your own child. So it's what the diviner recommended were like series and series of restitution rituals which he performed. Was able to find the family of the woman, went to them and asked for their forgiveness. They forgave him after all those things that he did, and currently the wife has given, he went and brought back the first wife that he sent home and apologized to her, got his affairs in order, and now they have a child. So these are like one of those stories that we see within our system. It is telling you that forgiveness is not that because you committed an act does not mean that it is infinite. It gives you opportunity to try to understand the implication of what you are doing, especially when they now direct that same situation, that same scenario to you. Once they direct it to you, you're able to feel the impact of what you did to some other person. So this is the Igbo explanation of this. But we, like I said, we don't really have this concept of a God that does everything and everything. No, we don't. We also, for forgiveness differs. And then we talk about free will. I don't really look at free will in terms of our Igbo ancestral system, because we believe in predestination. And even though we believe in predestination, we look at it as you as the driver, and you're now carrying, you're the driver, you're in charge of your life. And even if it is not the predestined path for you, you are still going to find your way. You're still going to live your life the way you're going to live it. It is just that it is not going to be as fulfilling as you being on that predestined path. But these are just beliefs that we have. They're just beliefs that we have. It is not based on knowledge, just beliefs and things that we are able to witness and see within our immediate reality. So as for this question of a God that does everything and the God that forgives and the essence of hell, I believe that hell is a social construct. It's a thing that they were populated, or it is something that was brought in as a way to control social behaviors. So that is that. Maybe they can come with a different kind of interpretation, because I don't also believe that this their God can do everything, because we are seeing within our immediate environment how false that statement is. And I hope religious people should accept the fact that their interpretation of this concept of this God that says that he can do everything does not actually do everything, because we've been expecting. There is this prayer that I went to an all-girls Catholic school for secondary school. We started to say this prayer for Nigeria in distress when I was in JSS 1, I'll be JSS 3. And I'm done from school, from that secondary school. It's been more than 10 years, and we are still praying for Nigeria in distress. And still yet, Nigeria keeps getting worse and ungovernable every single day, with corruption, insecurity, no job, economic issues, and all the economic decline and all those things. So we can literally see that these prayers are not working, even if they will try to gaslight us and start telling us it's because of our actions and inactions. All those things are just, shifting the goalpost and whataboutism, which does not really make sense. So we need to start questioning this system. And when we question even my indigenous system, I question it as much as I can. and by doing that I'm able to like understand things that exist within my immediate reality. So until next time, yeah guys, yeah.